Here we are, we're back at Avon Distribution Center in Avon, Ohio. The last couple of weeks what we've talked about are plants that grow in certain exposures, such as full sun, semi-shade. Today we're going to tackle plants that will grow in a heavy shade. Heavy shade meaning sun maybe 1 to 3 hours. Tough growing conditions, but there are many varieties. And one that is among the best are the Taxus U's. They really do a job. There's a lot of them around, but it is a great plant in a heavy shade. There's 4 varieties that I've keyed in on that I've had great success with. One is the Taxus Wardi. The other one is Taxus Everlow. Another one is Taxus densiformis. And for an upright, Taxus Hicksii. That's the one that can get up about 8-10 foot. They're great plants. They hold up very, very well in the shade, and something to consider. I know they're old-fashioned, but they're great plants and they live. Yeah, here's another couple varieties I'm going to show you. And these are Japanese hollies, the Ilex carnata series. There's quite a few of them. They do grow quite well in our area, but the trick is to site them properly. They will take some heavy shade, but they prefer a protected heavy shade, nothing from the, say, northwest winds. They do a great job, and try using them. Not a lot, try using a few of them. The one I'm holding here, one called Soft Touch, gets up 2 to 3 foot. I've tried it in heavy shade. It has done a good job. Next one we're going to show you is going to be Ilex Sky Pencil. It's right here. This is a good one. Can get up probably in that 6-7 foot area, 2 to 3 foot wide. It's a good one for tight corners, and also has done very, very well in our area. Now we're in an area of rhododendrons, one of the hoop houses. Most of you are familiar with rhododendrons. I have seen them planted in full sun, western exposure, northwest exposure, full sun. And you know what? That don't happen. Use them in a heavy shade to a semi-shade. Most rhododendrons will do well as long as they are somewhat protected. That's the key again, protected. Rhododendrons will run anywhere from 3-4 foot up to 6-8 foot. They're beautiful plants. Of course, they bloom in the spring. But watch the sizing on the one you buy, because they can get some size to them. Just by the way, I know a rhododendron down in Bay Village, Ohio, that right now is in the middle of a front yard in the lawn. I believe it's Roseum elegans. And that plant right now is about 15 foot tall. How can that happen? I don't know. But yes, every now and then one will grow. You know, to maximum sizes plus. So it's on Walker Road, by the way, for people that live in the area. Walker Road, just going into Bay Village. You'll see it. There's another small growing full shade plant, or semi-shade again. This is called Euonymus Moonshadow. It does provide a little bit of color in the landscape. It's not a tall grower, maybe a couple foot. And it will spread a little bit, maybe up to 4 to 6 foot. Beautiful plant, and try it. It does grow well in a heavy shade. Now we're featuring Tiara's japonica. Most of you are familiar with it. There's many varieties of it, but just in general, there are Tiaras that'll grow from 3 to 4 foot up to, say, 6 foot. They're a little narrower than they are tall. What they do, of course, early spring, they get like a bell-shaped flower on them. Then the new growth comes out. It has a little reddish color to it, tan reddish color, depending upon variety. They're very hardy, and I have used these in a black shade, which is basically no light whatsoever. Here's another great plant for the shade, called Firethorn Pyracantha. It's a great plant. You don't see many of them in our area because up till now they have been a little marginal, mainly zone 6 plants. This one here is Yukon Bell. It is rated as a 4 to 5 zone. It is very, very tough. Beautiful plant. It's covered with white flowers in the spring, and right now it's starting to form berries which will turn orange. I'm personally familiar with one that right now is up about 8 foot by 8 foot. It's been in a location for probably 35-40 years. I drive by it once in a while. It is the old variety, the old southern variety. Why this thing has survived, I have no idea, but every year it just keeps going. Nobody takes care of it because it's right up against the wall on the north side of an electrical substation in Cleveland. I can't believe it's still living, but boy, I'll tell you, it is gorgeous, and it has. This one is much hardier. Now we're standing in a block of burning bush, very common plant. I personally have used this plant in all locations, sun, semi-shade, and dense shade. It does very well in a dense shade, but the problem is with it, it does not burn well. In other words, it turns kind of a pinky red rather than a red. Still a good plant. They can get some size to them, 6-8 foot, very durable. And by the way, if any of your customers or in any of your jobs you're seeing burning bush starting to defoliate right now, turn a little red, that's a spider mite problem. I've been seeing it all over in my travels. 35 miles an hour, I can spot it. So look for spider mites. That might solve the problem. They probably will defoliate completely, but they'll be fine next year. Another very popular shade plant are the Viburnum family. There are many of them. They do quite well. They do not bloom as heavy when they are in a heavy shade, but they survive and they will still show color. There is one family of them called the dentatum family that I've had great success using in heavy shade and does bloom very, very well. And behind me here, and we'll show it to you in a minute, is the one called Blue Muffin. It's a plant that gets up probably 6 foot by 6 foot. Great plant. Does get a purple fruit on it later on in the season. Just a good viburnum. But they all work. They all work quite well, and that includes the fragrant ones if you're in a heavy shade situation. All right, now we're going to talk about a plant family called Clethra. You may or may not be familiar with it. It's a good semi-shade and heavy shade plant, and it will bloom. There's several different varieties. First one I'm going to talk about a little bit is the one called 16 Candles. Has a white flower on it. Gets up in that 3 to 4 foot range. Has white flower. It's a great plant. It stays very compact on its own. The next one you're going to see is a pink one called Ruby Spice. Gets up a little taller, probably in that 5 foot range, maybe a little taller. Again, pink flower. Again, handles heavy shade very nicely. So you got 2 choices of color. You can use the shorter one in a white or a little taller one in the pink. And they do grow there. One large growing conifer evergreen that I want you to see, most of you are familiar with hemlock. It is a great plant, and it also does well in a heavy shade. Now the one we're standing next to, this has been sheared, so it's very full. What will happen, you put one of a sheared variety into a heavy shade, it'll start naturalizing itself. Maybe you've seen them out in the woods. They'll self-seed themselves in the woods naturally. It's a good plant when you need the height. They do prefer a little bit of protection, however. They don't like to be out in the wide open, harsh winter winds. Just use it in a protected area. There's a couple trees we're not going to show you, but I thought of that would work well in a heavy shade. One is Coosa Dogwood. It's the one that blooms in June. Gets up about 20 foot, probably by 15, and it will bloom well in a quite heavy shade. I've used them myself. Another one is Witch Hazel. Witch Hazel is a large flowering shrub, which is usually trained into a small tree, maybe 15 foot thereabouts by 15 foot. Beautiful plant. Again, it'll take the heavy shade, and it blooms late fall. October, November, gets a yellow flower on it. Beautiful, beautiful tree, and it can be used in a smaller spot. Put the kusa, of course, in a larger area where you give it more room. Both are good choices for heavy shade. Okay, we're now going to wrap this video up. Just for a short recap, the last 3 weeks we have featured plants that grow in the sun, semi-shade, and shade. We're going to drop that mini-series stuff next week because I feel it's very important. The distribution center is now being restocked heavily with a lot of brand new plants. Summer crops are coming in, and some stuff we haven't seen around for a while. So we're going to just do the show and tell next week, just to show you what we do have. But we're going to pick up those little series, those little mini-series, starting 2 weeks from now. I'm going to feature things such as perennials, for sun, shade, plants that grow in moist conditions, dry conditions, and I'm thinking about tackling deer plants, if there is such a thing. So make sure you catch up with these every week. Very important. Thanks.